What is up, everybody? Welcome to the Movies That Make You podcast, where movies are more than just entertainment, they're a catalyst for meaningful conversations. I'm Jonathan Sprang, and I go by Sprang, and most weeks we dive into movies to watch in preparation for a new release hitting theaters. But we don't stop there. We explore the morals, the deeper ideas, and the life lessons that these films offer. This week on the podcast, we've got our friend of the show, Mr. POPpaGoss, back to talk about The Crow, this 1994 cult classic starring Brandon Lee. That's Bruce Lee's son. It also has Ernie Hudson from Ghostbusters, and it also has Michael Wincott from the Alien Resurrection, which we talked about last week. Honestly, after watching it this time, I would say I'm a fan. We were watching this in preparation for the remake that's coming out this Friday with Bill Skarsgard. Looks to be a lot of fun, but we'll see. I hope that you're excited about this conversation because we had so much fun talking about it. You can follow our movie journey and join the conversation on Instagram at Movies That Make You, and you can also check out all of our lists over on Letterboxd at I Am Sprang. You'll see all the lists that are movies that make you laugh, the movies that make you cry, the movies that make you scream, and everything in between. Drop us a message and let us know what movies have made an impact on your life. Before we dive into this week's episode, here's a sneak peek at the next 4 weeks of what's coming up on the Movies That Make You podcast. Next Monday is going to be the Fast and Furious series. This is one that Connor wanted to watch like last year, and we set aside some time this summer to knock it out. So the boys have watched the first time. All 10 Fast and Furious films, including Hobbs and Shaw's, to make that 11, including a couple of other little clips and short films that came out between the first few. So we did a full-on everything that Fast and Furious had to offer. We watched that, and we're going to have a big discussion on that, just as kind of a fun one-off series episode. And then the week following that, we're going to be posting our Beetlejuice episode. We watched the original film all together. Kristen's going to be on this episode along with the boys, so we'll have a lot of fun talking that, of course, in preparation for Beetlejuice, the first sequel, Michael Keaton, Winona Ryder. It's going to be awesome. We're excited for it. The week after that, we're going to do a Transformers episode. We've watched 3 of the live-action Transformers movies in preparation for the Transformers animated film, Transformers 1, that drops that following Friday. The week after that, we're going to post a one-off episode talking about The Matrix. I know we've talked about it a few times on the podcast, but this time it's with the boys for the 25th anniversary of The Matrix. Figured it was worth having the conversation. Hope those episodes excite you, and without further ado, let's get to the podcast. We are back with another episode of the Movies That Make You podcast, and we are joined again by my good friend. It feels like we've just been longtime friends, man. Josh Gossman. POPpaGoss is here again for this episode. How's it going, brother?
Good, man. Thanks for having me on again, and I can't agree more.
Yeah, man. It's just a few weeks ago we posted our Scream episode, and I reached out to you because we got an action-packed one today. We're just talking about one movie because there's a new version of the movie coming out, and that is The Crow. I had only seen it probably one time, and I had messaged you about, hey, do you like The Crow? Would you be able to talk to it? And you were like, yes, absolutely. So I'm excited to hear your thoughts on it because I enjoyed it for what it was, and I want to kind of hear your thoughts on it too.
Yeah.
And then towards the end, I think we'll jump into like anticipation for the new film and all that stuff. But before we jump into the movie, man, how's life been since we last talked?
It's been good, man. I really had a great time on the Scream episode. A lot of my friends and family who listened to it really enjoyed it too, because I'd say probably I have a good amount of like horror fans, even if they've only seen a few horror movies. Like they appreciate, especially movies like staple movies like Scream or Halloween and stuff. So, I had some people that listened to it that I wouldn't have expected otherwise, and they really enjoyed it. They were like, "Oh man, you guys know your stuff," and they're like, "We've heard you talk about horror movies before, but that was cool to hear somebody else like talk back and forth with you." And so it was a lot of fun. But yeah, life's been good, man. Just busy family stuff. I'm sure you know that more than anybody with 4 kids and stuff. Back to school was this week, so it was my son's in like the pre-K, so he's not quite to kindergarten yet. And he's in the like autistic class with like not that many kids. There's like 8 kids, but he started 2 days ago on Thursday, so we're back to school already, and my wife, she came home sick today. She's an ER nurse, so I don't know, she's got a flu bug or something, and then I think it's going around. So hopefully everybody on your end and my end can stay healthy the next couple months as we get into the fall already. I can't believe it's already the middle of August almost. It's pretty
Yeah,
insane. But
yeah, it's
yeah,
pretty wild, man.
how have you
Yeah,
been?
yeah, doing good, man, doing good. Family's doing well. Like we started back on Thursday as well. So all four boys and Connor is in cross country, and so they actually started the week before school mandatory practice at like 6 in the morning.
Oh,
And so he has to be at the school. This is his first year of high school, so he
wow.
has to be at the school at 6:20. Um, Jacob starting football starting Monday, and he's got to be at the school at like 6. He's got a
Oh,
practice
wow.
at 6, so he's got to be there at like 5:45. So
Dang.
we'll be busy before school,
Yeah.
and then with all the extra games and meets and stuff, like the cross country meets are on the weekends. Football games are on I think Tuesday nights. So we're gonna be busy. We're gonna be busy.
Yeah.
Now that school started, but trying to make sure I find time to schedule our podcast recordings with the kids. I was looking at their schedules like, oh no.
Yeah, and then
But
you work and stuff too, so I mean, I got all
yeah,
that plus yeah, that's a full schedule, man. I
yeah,
applaud you and Kristen for doing that.
for sure. And kind of speaking of schedules, I thought you'd get a kick out of this. I went through, I found it online, all the releases for next year, and so I already have like 90% of the podcast scheduled for next year.
Oh, that's well, hey man, that's good as a podcaster. I mean, you want to be prepared rather than like, oh man, because you never know what could happen. So
Exactly, exactly. So I've got most of the episodes, trying to tie back into something that's being released, even if it's not a direct tie. Like there was a couple that I thought would be really cool. Like there's one that's like a rescue movie, and so I thought, hey, let's just do it. It doesn't have any prequels or anything like that, so let's just find a couple of movies about people being rescued, and let's watch a couple of those and talk about those. That kind of a thing, because I think the sequels and stuff are always easy to like, oh, we got to watch these to prep for it. But I think also just mentally, just kind of getting myself in the headspace, it's always kind of fun. And actually, the first time I did that was with Kristen. She wanted to watch and I don't think I've shared this yet on the podcast, but she wanted to watch the Mary Queen of Scots movie with Saoirse Ronan and Margot Robbie. And so I was like, ooh, what would be really cool is what if we like, because I don't know a ton about that era and I don't really know what's going on in that story. And I'm sure they're going to do a good job of telling us, but what if we watched a couple of movies to kind of get ourselves in that headspace and get ourselves in that world? So we watched The Other Boleyn Girl, which is like, I think her mother or grandmother. And then we watched Elizabeth with Kate Blanchett. And that was like really kind of like, it really does a good job of telling you how she became that stoic monarch and how she really changed from being a human woman to being like, I have to be basically a god on earth. Like how she changed that personality, which is then in Mary Queen of Scots, Margot Robbie is playing that Queen Elizabeth character, and like you kind of get that tension there even more because we kind of saw that backstory. It was pretty cool. That was like 2017 when I first had that thought with Kristen, and so that kind of ends up being the impetus for this podcast, like gearing up for movies and kind of and doing that with the kids, especially starting with the Marvel movies and things like that. But it was kind of fun to reminisce about that as I was planning out next year's podcast schedule. So
heck yeah, man.
lots of stuff's already announced, and so it's pretty cool.
No, yeah, you do a great job. Like I'm very impressed since I met you. Like how I mean, it's good to plan ahead. I mean, especially in this world, it's like you got four kids, you got the family stuff, you got work, you got their sports schedule. So, I mean, stuff happens, and people getting sick this time of year. We're getting into the fall season, so there's all kinds of stuff going on. So that's good that you plan ahead. That's always a plus.
Sure. Yeah, man. And I don't mean to keep doing this, but speaking of like movies being released and announced and stuff, have you been paying attention to the D23 stuff?
I did, yeah. I've only caught a couple of little Instagram reels. I haven't sat down to watch the Skeleton Crew trailer. I didn't get to watch that yet, and then I haven't got to see the. I think all I've seen so far was that they announced Incredibles 3, which is fantastic. I mean, what a great. The first two are just so good, and then I saw the live action Stitch, where they showed what he looked like. I thought it looked better than I thought he would look because I saw some early pictures earlier this year, and I was like, oh man, that's what he's gonna look like. That's not very good, but the final product looks pretty good actually. And then
Yeah,
I saw I don't know how real some of the things are. I saw some people were like leaking like the Fantastic Four stuff and the I'm really excited about that one actually, but yeah, I saw some like leaked pictures of things, but I haven't sat down and watched. Oh, actually, I take that back. I did watch the Snow White live action trailer. It looks fine. It looks all right. It's kind of
yeah,
weird seeing Gal Gadot as like the queen of or the queen whatever her name is, the queen.
yeah,
Yeah,
Evil Queen, yeah.
yeah, evil queen.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and just kind of the those of you that are listening that are not familiar, D23 is like basically Disney's huge like Comic-Con basically. It's like a 3-day Comic-Con that's just all of Disney. And so anything that Disney owns that includes like Marvel, Star Wars, and then Disney proper, Pixar, like they're announcing, that it's basically their kind of launching point for getting the media buzz going
yeah,
on and the fan buzz going on some of their new stuff. I saw that Toy Story 5 is coming out. I saw
yeah.
Frozen 3 and 4 are announced. Um, and I had seen the Lilo and Stitch thing on the schedule, so I think we have that plan. But yeah,
Nice.
man, I mean, it'll be really fun to kind of see where everything goes. I saw they brought the
Ironheart.
Ironheart
Yeah,
cast
that
out.
should be good. I like Ryan Coogler as a director. I think he's pretty good. I thought he
Yeah,
did a great job with like the first two Creed movies, and then the obviously Black Panther,
Black
and
Panther.
then
Yeah.
Wakanda Forever. Wakanda Forever wasn't bad. It's hard to like
Hmm.
do a sequel to like one of the biggest Marvel films I've ever had without Chadwick Boseman. So like I knew that was going to be going in, but I mean Angela Bassett got an Oscar nominee for that and stuff. So
Hmm.
it was fine. It was just it's hard when you don't have your star person anymore. So
Yeah. Well, cool, man. Well, I see you got your
yeah,
Beetlejuice on.
yeah,
We're actually going to watch that tonight to gear
nice.
up for the new one. I haven't seen the first one since I was a kid, so I'm excited to revisit it as an adult and kind of. I didn't really get it as a kid. It was a little
Yeah,
weird and scary, and so I'm excited to kind of like get it as an adult and just have fun with it and just see Michael Keaton
yeah.
just being awesome.
It's one of the movies that like my wife and I bought. My wife is obsessed. She loves that movie to death. So like it came out because it came out in '88, I think, and I was born in '88. So like I grew up in that. Well, and obviously like Batman '89 was one of my first movies, introductions to cinema. Like I love Batman, so like Tim Burton did those kind of back to back. So Beetlejuice has always just been I'm around. Like I've always loved it. So we kind of bond over it. I don't have like high anticipation for the new one, but like I am excited to watch it because I mean, at least they brought Michael Keaton back. That's the most important thing. So you can't really
Hmm.
do it without him. But um, Michael Keaton said they use mostly practical effects, so that makes me excited, and I'm going into it just having a good time, hopefully. So I'm excited. I know my wife's super stoked to see that one. So
That's awesome.
yeah,
Yes, sir. Well, let's jump into it, man.
yeah.
The Crow. Like, do you want to go ahead and kind of set the stage? Like, tell us a little bit, tell us the synopsis, and then we can kind of jump into like how we reacted to it.
Sure. So basically, in short, so Eric Draven, he's this rock star. He's in this band. They don't quite set. like the first time you watch it, if you don't know a lot of the details about it, they kind of explain it as the movie's going on. But he's in a band. Him and his fiance or girlfriend, they get murdered by all these gang members, and then basically a year late, and it's the night before Halloween they get murdered. So October 30th. A year later, he rises from the dead because there's a crow that like transfers some kind of energy and powers and stuff into his like gravesite, and then he raises from the dead, and then he pretty much enacts his revenge on all these gang members. He's got like the ability to heal. And he's kind of learning these just like the superhero movies we all grew up watching. Like he's kind of learning them as he goes in the beginning, but he can heal himself. He's got like clairvoyancy, so he can he can touch people, and or if someone touches him, he can see and feel all their pain, and he can do the same to them, um, and kind of just see stuff. And he's very like nimble and athletic. He can jump. He's jumping on roofs and doing all that stuff. So it's really cool. But it was created off of a comic book, and this was 1994. So this was like, I mean, Batman '89 and then Superman the movie were really the only two serious like dark films that we got from based off a comic book. So James O'Barr was the creator of The Crow, and he wrote this to kind of mend his wounds. His fiance, he was dating this girl for a really long time. She was killed by a drunk driver, and so he found it therapy through drawing comic books, and he created this story based kind of around how he was feeling, and he had read stories and stuff to base the character off of. And so they finally adapted it into a movie. And, this was the 90s. So there was, I think, Christian Slater, Johnny Depp, and River Phoenix were originally offered the part. The studio didn't. They wanted them, but they didn't know what to do, and it was hard getting it off the ground. But they all turned it down, and Brandon Lee got the role. And for all of you who don't know, he is the son of Bruce Lee, the legendary icon of everything but martial arts and fighting and kung fu movies and stuff. So I mean, he had a short career, and he died at an early age. And unfortunately, Brandon Lee had this movie. We'll talk about it a little bit, but the movie as a whole was kind of cursed from the get-go, and it's one of the most like cursed films of all time. But Brandon Lee lost his life due to an accident with a prop gun that had a some kind of cap that was lodged into the gun that they were using, and it just misfired into his abdomen. They took him to the hospital, and he unfortunately passed away before the movie was released. So it's just kind of like a love letter to his career that could have been. And it's a dark movie, but it's a beautiful movie. If any of you have never seen it, I'd highly recommend it, because it's just, it's ahead of its time in a way, and it's totally a 90s movie, all alt rock soundtrack, Nine Inch Nails, The Cure, Smashing Pumpkins. So it's real fun. It's kind of a noir comic book movie before comic book movies became known today. So just a really, really fun movie for sure.
Yeah, man. Like I said, I mentioned I'd seen it once before, and I was always kind of fascinated by the fact that they had to do some scenes with reuse some footage and do some green screen stuff with it to try and recreate some of the scenes that they were still missing from Brandon. So that fascinated me. So I think I kind of grabbed a hold of that. But watching it this time, like seeing how influential this movie was for being a cult classic, meaning it didn't get mainstream buzz. It didn't get a big, people going out seeing the opening weekend. It probably didn't have a great run in the theaters, but something about it resonated with a certain culture and they just grabbed a hold of it and just leaned into it and just loved it. Part of me wants to like think like when you think about even like how influential just his look
Hmm.
was. Sting from the WCW before
Yeah.
it was WWE, like
Yeah.
he based his like new iteration of his character based off the Crow. Um, there like even just the gothness of it, the boots, the combat boots, the black, the face paint, the jackets, the everything, the music, like you said, like how influential this movie was to things that came after it. Um, I think even particularly, very specifically, towards the end of the movie, there's a rooftop chase scene where he's running across the rooftop, and I watching it, I was like getting so many Matrix vibes. Like
Yeah.
the opening scene of Trinity running and away
Yeah.
from the agents, like even to the point that there was one even camera angle and shot that looked at this piece where he jumped over. I was like, that's the exact same camera angle, the exact same shot for shot as one of the moments in that roof chase in the Matrix. So it's just like for being such a small, like, accepted movie in theaters when it first came out, to see how much it's influenced, like, other things, I was just really, really blown away by that.
Well, and to go back on the rooftop stuff, like they did even like the angle you were talking about, but they did like the slow motion of him running like down the roof and chasing the bird, and a lot of the side shots they reminded me a lot like when I went back and rewatched it recently because it'd been a little bit since I'd rewatched it. Um, the scene in Tobey Maguire Spider-Man when he learns all his powers and he's going on the roof and it's that side shot. They do like I mean it's not as great effects back then, but like that is exactly what Sam Raimi was probably like, "Oh, I'll try to do something kind of like that." His makeup I know he didn't like the makeup team. Brandon Lee didn't like the makeup team's job that they did. So what him and Alex Proyas, the director, did was he would literally sleep. He would put the makeup on at night, sleep in it so it looked worn, and then get up and they would shoot the scenes. And you can't not think of Heath Ledger as the
Yeah,
Joker. I mean, I think he took a lot of inspiration because I mean the hair is almost identical. The way he did his own makeup. I mean, he went to a little convenience store in Chicago and got paint and just made it his own thing. So I think, yeah, it's you can see its footprint in a lot of, especially comic book movies, the darkness, the noir feel. I mean, it set up comic book movies like Sin City or
mhm,
even the first Spawn. Like I know they're getting ready to do a new Spawn movie, um, like the original Spawn from the '90s. Like that came out a couple years after The Crow. You can tell similarities in that, but yeah, it's just crazy how like what you said, like a little film that I mean they weren't even going to release it when Brandon died, and then Miramax was still kind of new at the time, so they bought the rights to it, invested a little bit of money. They did some reshoots with some kind of stunt double with a mask that was pictured like Brandon, and they finished the movie and put it out in his honor, which was really cool. But yeah, I mean, there's a part of me where it's like, man, that movie might have not ever come out, and we would have not known how like influential that was on especially
yeah.
the early 2000s when comic book movies and just action movies and stuff were coming out. I mean, it has its footprint in there for sure. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah. It's funny too, like, the storytelling, like you mentioned, like, going into it blind, you kind of just have to like invest that I'm gonna understand this after a bit because the storytelling is kind of bouncing back and forth. It feels between kind of they do the murder scene as kind of these like flashes of memories, somewhat probably like how he would be experiencing those memories, being this kind of brought back to life being that he doesn't fully remember everything, but he's probably catching flashes. I think the director probably did that same idea because it doesn't really show you the whole scene in one fell swoop. It's like showing you little glimpses of it, and then down later in the movie, you're getting more glimpses of that scene. Um, but I think some of the main characters that kind of jump out and kind of keep the story moving from like a one point to the end point is the cop that shows up on the scene, the detective that's there to try and figure out what happened in that upstairs room, what happened to these people, why were they killed, who killed them, and then the little girl that's a friend of them. Those are kind of the two main characters we latch onto that kind of keep the story somewhat grounded in a start to end kind of sequence. But you get introduced to the gangs. He, like you said, a year later, we catch up to the little girl. She's kind of going to visit the graveside, and then all of a sudden, like this crow shows up, and then you kind of get him exhumed. Um, but then like that, it's like that trying to solve the mystery, so it's got a little bit of that, and then it's just a revenge tour. Like he's
Yeah.
just going after the people that were there that night, and it follows the same rhythm of like a John Wick,
Mhm.
like that. Like we're gonna take them out. We're gonna take the lowest rungs of the gang out first. We're gonna get a little information. Then we're gonna go after the next one. We're gonna go after the next one. Go after the next one until we get to the top. And then it was also the also fun part about that too was for me as I was watching is like pulling up IMDb and going, where do I know this guy from? Oh yeah,
Yeah.
he's in that. Where do I know this guy from?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he was in that. And like a couple of these folks have been in so many movies,
Yeah.
and it's just like I recognize them, but I couldn't place it right off the bat. But the main villain, I will say, the main villain that's like the boss of the whole thing, he's like super animated.
Oh,
He's
yeah.
like
Yeah,
Jim
yeah.
Carrey, like in Batman Forever, like that level of like the cheese and like
Yeah.
pulp. Like he's just going for it. But it's like that's what gives it its charm too. At the
Yeah.
same time.
Yeah, Michael Winka, I did the same thing. I was going through IMDb recently because I know Michael Wincott he showed up as like a side character a lot especially in the 90s, but he was recently, I didn't know because he's gotten a lot older and he doesn't look the same, but he was in Jordan Peele's Nope. I didn't realize that till I was like going back and I was like, "Oh my God, that is him in the Nope
Yeah.
movie." So yeah, he kind of played that. There was a couple movies in the 90s that he was like not necessarily a villain, but he got typecasted as kind of that, character. And the Crow, his character in the Crow, like you were saying, he's real animated, but it's kind of hard because they say he's like a gang member or like the head of a gang or whatever, but he kind of gives off almost like vampire vibes,
Oh yeah.
kind of like not as it's his is a little bit more eccentric, but Steven Dorff in like Blade 1, like kind of that
Yeah.
that kind of level of character. So I don't know, it's kind of funny to go back and like watch all that. And then obviously Sergeant Albrecht is Ernie Hudson, for all of you who love Ghostbusters. So it's kind of unique to see him in a really dark film that's not and he's not they didn't give him like crazy dialogue or anything, so he like got to be Ernie Hudson, but it's just kind of weird seeing him be in Ghostbusters 1 and 2 and then he's in this like dark, you know, neo
Yeah.
noir film. So
I did want to mention that too. Like you mentioned the noir aspect of it. I loved that. I felt like that just the opening moments, and then there's a scene about halfway through or maybe towards the end where the crow's flying and you're kind of the POV of the crow,
yeah.
but it felt so much like kind of Batman 1989. Like there was
Mhm.
a little bit of that Gothamness to it. I will say that too, that like I think that the director and did an incredible job at building the world.
Yeah.
Honestly, it's a single movie. It's you got to get a lot of information, like what's going on. Like the first scene, you're seeing the place is on fire. You don't know why, and then there's this death and this crime scene. But then little by little, you start to pick up on the fact that no, this is an ongoing thing. Like this city experiences this every year, the night before Halloween. I don't remember what it's called. Do you remember what the night is called? What they call it?
Oh, yeah, I'm drawing a blank too. I literally just put it on again a couple of nights ago, but I can't remember what they call it.
I'm gonna look
Yeah,
it up so I can get that right.
yeah, yeah, because I was like in my head, I have it on the tip of my tongue and I can't remember.
Devil's Night.
Devil's
Yeah.
Night. Yeah, I knew it was
So
something simple that would relate to dark.
yeah.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, so I mean, it's they build that up, and then they say it's then we get news reports like the next year. Uh-oh, Devil's Night's about to be up,
Mhm.
and then this Devil's Night, like when it comes back a year later, like I love it because he's going after all of these all the guys in the gang, and the main villain is going, man, why are there no fires in this city? Like this is Devil's Night. This should be like everything should be in flames, and so he's like protecting the city from this game because he's taken out all the members. I love that. But then I also love the way that he took that the villain took that to another level. He's like, uh, I don't want to just keep doing the same thing. I want to be revolution. Like it's like this
Yeah,
kind of like I want to take it to another level, and like how do we do that? And I was just like I really like that aspect of his villain character because he was a little cheesy, a little pulpy, but then he's got a vision for
yeah,
how he wants to like again. I think influences to Heath Ledger's Joker, to whoever wrote Joker and wrote those books that kind of made him the
mhm.
anarchist. Like I think they were influenced by this guy because it's complete. Like he wants to destroy everything. He wants to blow everything up, and only for the sake of seeing the world burn. Like that's just a. I think that's even like I said, even though it's a little cheesy and pulpy, there's still like this. There's this level of thoughtfulness to the characters that I think some people might not really grab a hold of because of it being such a 90s film. You know, they might
Well,
miss some of those things. So I wanted to mention it.
yeah, and it's funny because like it's it's kind of all those movies for the most part have that same formula where it's like you have the mastermind villain, and then you have like there's like that kind of stupid henchman. He like talks real dumb. So like you have like the dummy henchman. You got the one that has to like watch over the dummy hench. So it's like it's the same kind of like the group of villains. It's the same formula. So it's fun to go back and watch, even though as cheesy as some of the lines that the henchmen have and the main villain and stuff. I mean, even Brandon Lee, he's got a couple of cheesy things in there, but like it's just he looks awesome. So like people
Hmm.
just already automatically are like, man, I don't even care because he looks so cool. It's like I mean, he's just so like iconic, and it's funny because Alex Proyas, the director, he originally wanted because it was a black and white comic book, no color. He originally pitched the idea to do it all in black and white, the whole movie, and then only have color in the flashback scene only, to kind of contrast the thing, which I thought is very unique. But then the studio was like, please do. They're like, we're already having a hard time getting this off the ground. He was a nobody at the time anyway, so they finally did that, and then I don't remember how he exactly filmed it, but he was still able to do something unique, obviously. So he changed the somehow he changed the contrast of how he filmed it. But like while you were talking about the crow flying over, like just such an inventive, like nobody was doing that in. I mean, even the 80s and 90s, nobody was filming stuff like that. There were overhead shots of stuff in movies, and obviously, like most of the time, it was people driving or coming down in a city while people are walking or whatever. But like he had that shot um, where they get where Eric's in the car with the henchman and he makes him drive to the thing and they're just speeding through the city. Like even that, I mean, for being
Yeah.
1994, just so nobody was doing stuff like that. It was crazy. And then that the crow flying over is just such a unique style of like how you would film that. And yeah, you got to give Alex Proyas a lot of credit. I know he hasn't done a ton of like credible work like movies. Like I enjoy his movies like Dark City and Gods of Egypt even was pretty fun, but like he's just not he's not one of those directors that you're like everybody talks about. Most people don't even know who directed The Crow, obviously. So it's kind of
Yeah.
like, oh yeah.
But I mean, I'm with you, man. Like and like when you're sharing that, it's like, yeah, I'm completely 100% understanding the studio's position, like that doesn't work in the 90s. Like it's not going to make any money. We have to just make it normal to have any chance of it actually succeeding. We can't do something unique like that. But the fact that he did the movie and he set that stage, and that comic book was an influence to Frank Miller, and
Oh yeah,
that like that idea was an influence to Robert Rodriguez, and Sin City being made is a testament to the fact that he had the guts to make The Crow
right.
and to at least promote it. And of course, I think all of the other comic book movies that came after this, like you mentioned, Blade, X-Men, Spider-Man, like all of those kind of set the stage to say, okay, we've seen the traditional comic book thing. Let's take it another direction. And so the studios were more willing to see a Sin City get made and A Dame to
Yeah.
Kill For. And then I think, even whatever that other one was that Frank Miller directed that wasn't that great.
Oh, the Spirit.
The Spirit,
Spirit.
like
Yeah.
it got made because of the success of The Crow, the Sin City, that like it's just really, really interesting. And I think that's one of the things that we do with the boys is we watch all the standards, the Marvels, the DC. Those are more palatable, those are more kid friendly. But as you get to be an adult and you want to kind of branch out of that, if anybody listening is kind of thinking that comic book movies are just for kids, like these are examples of where they're not. They're not for kids. There's some really incredible art out there and some incredible stories and some incredible directors that are doing things that are outside of the box, but still a comic book, but definitely outside the box. The other one that comes to mind in that whole vein is Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Like we just released a couple weeks ago, we dropped our Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles episode. But there's a movie coming out. There's a movie planned. I think it's been announced. They're working on script and stuff. That's going
The
to be an
Last Ronin.
R-rated. Yeah, The Last Ronin.
Yeah. I
And
can't wait for that.
that was a comic book that was a black and white, and it was like this like epic story of and it's like, yeah, let's take these characters and let's kind of really dive in, get out of the kind of the teen and bubblegum happiness of some of those Marvel movies, and let's get into the nitty gritty and see what really is there. I just think that's just so fascinating.
Yeah.
And yes, we can have the Mutant Mayhem 3 sequels, and at the same time, we're going to get a nice like R-rated black and white Last Ronin film possibly. And then you think about like, yes, we can get the James Gunn DC universe and we can kind of play in that world, but we're also going to get a Joker with Joaquin Phoenix being super dark, and we're going to get a Batman with Matt Reeves, and we're going to get these characters and see them in multiple different facets and not be limited to just kind of the thing that's more palatable. I think as if someone who likes to think outside the box and dream outside the box and think more deeply and more kind of grounded in the way I approach some of these stories, it's like there's so many different layers that we're able to now get. And I think The Crow got us down that path, even
Yeah.
though it did nothing in the theater. It opened the door for storytelling that we had never seen before. So
It kind of, I mean, yeah, it did okay in the theater, like not anything astronomical. Also, there weren't really like Batman 89 was the first big blockbuster. That's when they like
yeah,
coined the term blockbuster. And so, the 90s, even though they weren't as epic in the box office as some of those other movies that came out, it did well. But the thing that it really crushed on was home video. It was like
yeah,
Blockbuster, people were renting it. I mean, that's how a lot of those 90s flicks were. I mean, people were constantly just renting the VHS, and then DVD came along, and people were just, it was just a cycle. And I heard Matt Damon talking a thing recently where he said the industry kind of got hurt really bad when people stopped caring about physical media because he's like that was how, if our movies did bad in the theaters, we could recoup all of our money at home video. So it's like it's real powerful because like those kind of movies don't, those big blockbusters that do well at home on video, it's kind of I guess they have them digitally, but it's not the same like as it was back then. So it's pretty cool. I mean, it was technically an independent film, I guess you could consider it. Just, I mean, it had a
Yeah.
bigger budget than an independent film normally would, but just with all the troubles and almost not getting released at all, and you lose your star of the movie before the movie's wrapped or even come out. I mean, back then, that I mean, I think it's only happened a few times in history. I think, like, obviously the huge one, Heath Ledger. I think Oliver Reed for Gladiator, he died before Gladiator was done filming. But it doesn't happen. I mean, like, the stars of the movie don't. Nothing happens to the star, and especially a star who's like about to get their due and break out
Hmm.
on their own, because Brandon had only been in a few movies, so he was kind of living in his dad's shadow for a long time, even though he was nothing. He was complete opposite of his dad, and The Crow was finally gonna like catapult him onto hopefully a long career. So it's very unfortunate, but I mean, at least that movie, I think that movie means a lot to people because of what happened and the tragedy, and like, he now forever lives on in this. I mean, he is the Crow, no matter how many sequels or remakes or whatever. I mean, he will be the Crow
Yeah.
for forever. So
Absolutely, absolutely. I looked it up, and it looks like opening weekend it made $11 million, and then overall domestic box office or worldwide box office for the '94 release was 50 million seven
oh
hundred and ten
wow,
thousand. So
yeah.
pretty decent, for '94. To your point about, like, it did all right. I guess, for me it always, like, when you look at that compared to, like,
Yeah,
the like
today. Yeah.
Deadpool and Wolverine, they're
Yeah.
about to break $1 billion.
Yeah.
So
Crazy.
it's a different world, but yeah. So, anything else you want to talk about the original film?
Yeah, so I don't know if how much digging you've done on the movie, but there's something that's always fascinated me. There was I didn't even know about it, but there's a docu series on Shudder, and it's called Cursed Films, and they did an episode on The Crow, and apparently the original they filmed a scene, and I don't know if you can even get much of the deleted footage, but um so instead of the little girl being like the narrator in the movie, um, and kind of like the main focus for Eric and his girlfriend, um, they had Michael Berryman, the legendary. I mean, he was in like the original Hills Have Eyes, and he's kind of that awkward looking guy. He's built. I met him a long time ago. He's a super sweet guy, but he was cast as there's a comic book character for The Crow called the Skull Cowboy, and he's just really kind of looks like Skeletor, but with like a just like a Western style thing on. And he was kind of like this. He was supposed to guide Eric when he became the Crow, and they filmed his like two scenes or whatever. And then when Brandon passed away, they for whatever reason decided that that wasn't really working with what they wanted to do. So Michael Berryman's scenes got cut out. So I've always been intrigued, like, what those scenes actually look like, or if it would have changed how the feel of the movie is, or anything like that. But like, the little girl's awesome, of course. But I just always in my head, I'm like, after I heard that, I was like, man, I wonder how that would have turned out. That would have been pretty cool. But
Hmm.
I never know,
Yeah.
I guess.
For real. Well, are you looking forward to the remake at all?
I am, especially after those kind of movies. You just feel bad for. It's like, I know they've been trying to. I think it's gone through like 8 directors or something like that, and then the past they were supposed to make it, I think, 10 or 12 years ago. They started production with I forget who the actor was a long time ago, but that got canceled. And then Jason Momoa, they were in pre-production, and he released a photo and the makeup and all that, and then that got canceled, like, because it was during I think it was right after the pandemic. And then flash forward to now, they got Bill Skarsgard, who I think is a tremendous actor. I think he's one of the most talented actors we have, that doesn't get a lot of like main roles outside of Pennywise, obviously. But he comes from a talented bloodline of actors, and I think it looks visually cool. I mean, I thought the first trailer looked pretty awesome. Um, I'm kind of going into it not comparing it to like The Crow that we love and know. I think I'll go into it, knowing that it's based solely off that storyline, but like I think this will make itself its own thing, which is really cool. Like they're not trying to copy it exactly. So I'm interested to see. It's got a unique cast that like I don't know if I would have originally gone with the people that they cast in the movie, but I'm sure they look like they're good. So I'm excited. We'll see. I mean, I don't know if I'm gonna try to get out to the theaters to see it just because I feel like it needs to be seen on the big screen. But I'll give it a shot. I'm not gonna just jump in and hate it right away because everybody's like, "Oh, Brandon will forever be the Crow," and he still will be the Crow forever.
Exactly.
I mean, remakes and even like long-awaited sequels, like it doesn't change the fact, how I feel about the original Crow. So, it
Yeah.
can be its own thing. If it's great, then I win. If it's bad, then I don't lose anything. So, it's pretty
Yeah.
cool. So, I'm excited.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. I think being able to see this story told we're using the modern kind of aesthetics and things like that. Like, it looks awesome. I think Bill Skarsgard is great. I know he had Pennywise. He just had that action film that he was in earlier this year, like in January, February.
Yeah,
So I think he's kind of trying to push himself. Like his team's doing a good job of pushing him as being someone that can do a bunch of different styles of
yeah,
movies and do them well. And I think, man, like it looks like we've said it looks amazing, and I think it looks like from the trailer that it's going to do a more straightforward
mm,
story than the original, where it's just going to kind of introduce you to their relationship and let you fall in love with them, and then they're gonna and then they get killed, and then you feel bad, and then he comes back, and then like where the first one was, it just jumped into the murder had already happened. So I think it'll be a fun time at the movies,
yeah,
and we'll see kind of where it goes from here. But I think, like, I'm with you, man. Like, no matter how many remakes they make, it doesn't change the original. And so, if you like the original, go watch the original. Like, they're not trying to take that away from you. They're just trying to tell this story in a new audience, and to get make some more money off of a beloved thing. But at the same time, like, just make it more approachable for a new audience. I think about like some of the greatest. There's a few great movies that are like remakes of
yeah,
the one that comes to mind hugely is one with Al Pacino, Scarface. I mean, that's a
yeah,
remake. So if we just stopped remaking movies, like we would have never gotten that amazing movie. So I don't have any problem with them remaking or requeling or sequeling or prequeling. Like I don't have any problem with any of that. It's just give me a good movie, and if it's a
yeah.
good movie, we can enjoy it. And if it's not, we can say, all right, that wasn't great, but I can go home and throw on the original and
Right.
watch that anytime I want. So
Well, and
it's
it has to be better than the all the sequels that were made because those were I can't even I've never watched. I think I started watching Salvation, the second one, and it wasn't like the worst movie I'd ever seen, but like I couldn't. I mean, it's not memorable or anything. And then I haven't even given the like Edward Furlong one and the other. I haven't given any of those a chance. So it's got to be at least cooler and better than those sequels they tried to push out. So
yeah.
we'll see. But I'm excited. I think it'll be cool.
Awesome, man. Well, I appreciate you jumping on today, man. I'm taking the time to be on the podcast.
Yeah,
It's always fun to have you. And don't forget, we're going to have you on for one of the October episodes too.
yeah,
I
for
want
sure, man.
to for the we're going to do the iconic horror characters. So like John, Jason, Freddy, Michael Myers,
Nah,
and then anything and everything. And we're going to release that one along with the Terrifier 3 release
okay.
because I watched the first one. I was like, dude, this guy can be iconic. Like just the look and
I
everything about it
It's
is
funny
like,
you say that.
whoo,
I just met David Howard Thornton. He was in OKC a couple weeks ago. Who plays Art the Clown? I just met him like I think it was exactly 2 weeks ago, and he's definitely not you know obviously not like that, and he's just super nice and real like
Yeah.
kind of calm and quiet. And then he did a photo op as Art the Clown, and he walked by my friend and I in the costume, and I was like, dang, that's crazy that you can go from like kind of like the Crow, like that
Yeah.
costume just changed. Like it's gonna become iconic, and I mean, people are so
Yeah.
excited for Terrifier 3, so we'll see. But yeah, that's crazy that you mentioned that. So, but I'm always happy to be on, man, whenever you want me. So
Cool, cool. All right, man. Have a great rest of your day. We'll
you
talk to you
too,
soon.
brother. Say hi to the fam.
We'll do. See
All
ya.
right, later, brother.
Thanks so much for listening to the Movies That Make You podcast, where movies are a catalyst for meaningful conversations. We hope that you'll give us a like, a share. Let us know you were here over at our Instagram at Movies That Make You. And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss an episode. So until next time, keep watching movies.